to start factoring. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at factoring at a GCF, which is a greatest common factor. Now, before we start with that, let's go back and we're going to find the product first. So we're going to distribute through. So we have 3a squared, and we have 3a times 4 gives us 12a. So we have a monomial times a binomial. In our next example, we have a monomial times a trinomial. So again, we're going to distribute. So I get 12m to the 4th plus 6m to the 3rd plus 66m squared. Okay, so when we factor out a GCF, we're basically working backwards. We're going to start with this bigger term. We're going to factor out a common factor that goes into each term, and that's going to be our simplified version. Okay, so our greatest common factor, first thing we're going to look at is what's the highest number that divides evenly into each term. So we're going to look just at the numbers. Then we're going to look at the variables, and we're going to take the lowest power for each variable. So the first thing we're going to do here, it says name the greatest common factor. So first thing I'm going to do is look at the numbers. So I have 6 and 12. So what number goes into both of those? Well, that's a 6. When I look at my variables, I have an x and a y. And I don't have an x in my second term, and I don't have a y in my first term, so therefore I can't factor out a variable. Let's look at our second example. So we have two terms. Let's look at our 15 and our 10. Our greatest common factor there is 5. 5 goes into both of those terms. Now we have g to the second, and we have g to the first. So again, if you look above, we're going to take the lowest power, so it's going to be g to the first. And then we're going to look at h. We have h to the first and h to the second. So again, we're going to take the lowest power, which happens to also be just h to the first power. Okay, let's take this a step further. We're going to factor each polynomial. So the first thing I'm going to do is I realize in number 1 that 2 goes into each of those terms. So that's going to be my greatest common factor. With the number, when I'm looking at the variable, I have an x here, an x in my second term, but I don't have any x there. So therefore, I can't factor out an x. So therefore, my greatest common factor is just 2. So whatever number I pull out, I'm going to divide into each term. So that gives me x squared minus 4x minus 1. And that's my simplest version right there. Okay, moving on. I have 27 and I have 18. The number that goes into both of those, the highest number is 9. And I have y to the second and y, so that's going to be y to the first. So again, that's my greatest common factor. So I'm going to divide both into that. So I have 3y plus 2. This, when I divide it, 27 divided by 9 gives me 3. And I have y squared minus y to the first. So I'm going to subtract and get y. And I just realized I made a mistake. This plus should be a minus. Oh, no, it shouldn't be. That's supposed to be a plus. I just can't see it. So then I have a plus here. I'm going to take an 18 divided by 9, and that gives me 2. I have a y on the top and the y on the bottom, so I don't need another y. Now, I can always check it, and we're not going to check all the problems, but just to show you, I can take what I have as my answer, and I can distribute my 9 through. I get 27y squared plus 18y. Now, because I wrote over that symbol, I just want to make sure that's a plus, which it is, so I'm all set. Okay, as we keep going, let's look at number 3. So I have a 4, an 8, and a 5. There's no number that goes into all 3 of those. And then I look at my variables. I have an m squared here, an m, but I don't have any m. So I can't pull out an m either. So in this case, this one can't be factored. Nothing else I can do with that. Okay, moving on. Let's take a look at the next one. So I look at the numbers. And I have a 1 here, a 2, and a 10. The 1's not really going to help me, so I can't take any numbers there, but let's look at my variables. So when I look at my x's, I have x to the 5th, x to the 4th, and x to the 8th. So my lowest power is x to the 4th. I'll do the same thing with my y's. I have y to the 4th, y to the 7th, and y to the 2nd. So y to the 2nd is going to be my lowest power. So therefore, I'm going to take that out. So let's just kind of clean that out. So here, I'm going to divide everything by x to the 4th, y to the 2nd, x to the 4th, y to the 2nd, each term. And that will give me x to the 5th minus 4th gives me 1x. And then my y, 4 minus 2, gives me to the second. So I have xy squared minus, that 2 is going to come down, x to the fourth over x to the fourth, that just simplifies to 1, so I don't need any more x's. And I have y to the seventh over y to the second. That gives me y to the fifth. And when I'm looking at that last term, I have plus 10. X to the 8, 8 minus 4 gives me 4, so I have x to the fourth. And that y to the second over the y to the second, that's just going to simplify to 1. So I close my parentheses, and there is my factored form of that original trinomial. Okay, let's move on. Number 5. So in this case, I have a -6 out front. So let's see if I need to do anything with that. So I have a 6, a 30, and a 24. And my greatest common factor, my number is going to be 6. But I notice it's already in standard form, and I notice I have a negative. We always want our leading coefficient in the parentheses to be positive. So therefore, I'm going to take out a -6, and you'll see why in just a minute. My lowest exponent is to the second. So I am going to divide everything by -6c to the second, which leaves me with positive c to the second plus 5c minus 4. So again, the reason that I pulled this negative out is because right here, my leading coefficient, what happens to be 1, I want that to be positive. I'm always looking for a positive leading coefficient. So that's why I factored out that negative first. Okay, let's take a look at one more. My greatest common factor, I have a 2. And then my lowest power for my x is x to the first. And my lowest power for y is going to be y to the first. So I'm going to divide everything by 2xy. And that leaves me with 2x to the fifth, y to the third, plus 4y minus x. And that should be it for that one. Okay, let's take a look at some challenge questions. Okay, so it says the greatest common factor, the GCF, of two monomials is this right here. I already pulled that out. One of the monomials is this. We're trying to figure out what's that second monomial that's going to work. Okay, so the numbers are a little bit tricky to look at. So let's just look at our variables. I have x to the fourth and I have x to the second. Now we know we take out the lowest exponent, right? The lowest power. So I know I'm going to need an x to the second because 2 is going to definitely be smaller than 4. I have a y here, and again, this is y, so I know I have to take care, that's going to be y to some power. I'm not sure. It doesn't have to be y to the first power, so we're going to look at that, and we have to just find a number that 3 goes into. So let's just start with our x to the second. Well, letter A has x to the first. That's not going to work. Letter B is okay so far, x to the second. Letter C has x to the 6, x to the 6, and D. So it looks like it's going to be letter C. So let's just double check. If I slide that 6 in, and I have 6, and this is 6y to the third. If I took this and this, my greatest common factor, 3 and 6 would definitely be 3. It would be x to the second, and it would be y, because both of those, my y is my lowest power, and my x to the second is the lowest power, so the answer is letter B. All right, let's take a look at the last one. It says the greatest common factor, and they give you the two terms here and here, is this right here. What is the value of k? Well, we see k in two different spots. My k is here, and my k is there. So this 2k above, oh, that's a mistake there. Let me just fix that. That's going to be x. I just copied that wrong. Okay, so I notice that I have y just to the k. This 2k is a little tricky to match up with that x. So I have y to the k and y to the fourth. And I look at my greatest common factor, and it's only to y to the third. So I know that has to be y to the third, right? Because that's y to the fourth. That 4 is too high. So that leaves me with k is equal to 3. So that's what I think it is. Let's just kind of go back. I'm going to erase some of this and start this again. And I'm going to check it. So if k were 3, that would be my first term. In my second term, this 2k, 2 times 3 would give me 6, y to the 4th. Does that leave me to my greatest common factor? Well, between these two, my lowest power is x to the 3rd. And between my y's, my lowest power is also to the 3rd. So x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, which is my answer that I was given. So I know I'm all set. Okay, thanks so much for stopping by today. You have a great day.